بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
In the
أصحاب
name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful, distinguished guests, distinguished ambassadors, professors, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, all our attendees that are attending this event, this panel discussion, would like to welcome you into this cultural panel discussion, which marks the celebration of International Women's Day. I am pleased to be with you here. So, on behalf of the director of the Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies, he gave me the opportunity to present and moderate this session as a woman. I would like to salute Dr. Sultan Barakat, the director of the Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies. Would like to bring to your attention that we have translation into both Arabic and English, and we do welcome your questions, your comments through the Zoom platform and also through social media platforms on the web page of the center, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. So, at the outset, I would like to say that the Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies has contributed a great deal when it comes to these studies pertaining to women. And I would like here to remind you of a number of events that have been organized by the Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies that concentrated on this particular topic, which is the role, for instance, the role of women in diplomatic work in order to reinforce peace. There was another panel discussion about the experience of Afghan women in negotiations and peacemaking. So there are so many panel discussions that are indeed available on the different platforms on the website of this center, chs.org, so the Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies. So we have so many themes and titles that are very important indeed. And this makes us really inquisitive in order to get to know about these topics. So we have had a project that started in September as part of the UN International Governance Forum. So we would like now to talk about today's panel discussion. We're going to have a constellation of speakers, of ambassadors, of ladies who have contributed a great deal in peace building, which is our topic of discussion tonight. So this panel discussion is going to talk about the role of women in peace building from different perspectives, from different levels of expertise, the expertise of the different speakers that are going to talk from their own angles, from different angles. We're talking about national strategies, efforts of mediation, educational programs, popular initiative, the contribution of youth, and so many other topics that are relevant to this theme, the theme of our discussion tonight. So we're going to start with a number of speakers. We have Ambassador Jacqueline O'Neill, Canada's Ambassador for Women, Peace and Security. And also we're going to have Her Excellency Sheikha Alia bint Yusuf Al Thani, the permanent representative of the State of Qatar at the United Nations, and Her Excellency Fatima Jilani, member of the Afghan negotiating team here in Doha. And definitely she has a very rich experience that we can learn from a great deal when it comes to the peace negotiations that are taking place here in the state of Qatar. So we are going also to have another session, which is about countries and states that have been affected by conflicts. We're going to have Afaf Yahya from Sudan. We're going to have Rania Hana from Libya. And also we're going to have Rahila Siddiqui from Afghanistan and Intilaq Al-Mutawakkil from Yemen. And this session is going to be moderated after the first session by Maysa Abu Hilal from the Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies. And after the second session, we're going to have another session where we're going to have ambassadors from Ethiopia, from Tanzania, and Stephanie Malcolm, the ambassador of Canada to Doha, to Qatar. And we're going to have a panel discussion by Amal Ghazal, Professor Ghazal. So Arabic can cater for the masculine and the feminine. She's going to be moderating the last session. So the Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies is very much interested in the discussions pertaining to the role of women. So there is a constellation of women that work at the center, that work and talk about the role of women in peace building at the local and international levels in peace building in different relevant countries. Although there are many studies, numerous studies relevant to this particular topic that have proven the importance and effectiveness of the active role played by women in this particular kind of field. But there is a recognition, particularly from our side, that we women, despite all the studies that have been proven by the different studies on the ground, in reality, this this pathway is very limited as per the statistics are concerned. And as far as the United Nations is concerned, and here we can prove this kind of thought. So the statistics says that women constitute 3%, only 3% of mediators, which is a very, very small number. The same statistics say that 13% of negotiators are women, so only 13%. And we have also only 4% of women who have signed peace agreements and conventions, and this is in the period between 1992 and 2018. Also, we have to indicate here that we have the statement that was made by IPI that says that there is a direct relationship between the success of solutions that emanate from peace conventions and agreements and the participation of women in such solutions. So there are 35% of the different conventions and agreements that have been successful for in excess of 15 years. So 35% of these conventions and agreements, women played a pivotal role in the formulation of these conventions and agreements. And this is testament to the fact that women play a very important indeed when it comes to peacemaking and the implementation of these conventions. So we're talking about a component that is very active, very effective, although, of course, the statistics are not very much reflective of the role that is played by women when it comes to conflict management and peacemaking. So in order to discuss this topic, we have a constellation of speakers, of ladies. So each one of the speakers is going to speak from her own standpoint, from her own experience. So we would like to start with Her Excellency Ambassador Jacqueline O'Neill, Canada's Ambassador for Women, Peace and Security. And during the time she held this position, she contributed to the development of this field, which is women, peace and security, and national strategies, and also the implementation of the different policies in the different multilateral organizations. She also worked as an advisor to the Canadian government, particularly when it comes to the national plans on women, peace and security. I would like to give the floor now to Her Excellency Her Excellency Ambassador Jacqueline O'Neill, and after that we're going to give the floor to the remaining guests, and after that we're going to have a discussion. Your Excellency Jacqueline O'Neill, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Hadida. Shukran. Hello, bonjour, salam alaikum. I want to thank Khadija, Sheikh Aliyah, Her Excellency Galani, Professor Barakat, you as well, all of our distinguished speakers, and of course everyone who's joining us online, and bring greetings to you from Ottawa, Canada. My surroundings outside my office right now look a lot like the scene in the painting behind me. We have quite a lot of snow at the moment, so I hope you'll believe me when I say that you can't imagine how much I wish I were in Doha with you at the moment, or wherever you are. I really want to congratulate the Center on having the vision for this event and for taking the initiative to bring it to life. And I'm just delighted to join and really look forward to the subsequent discussions. Our ambassador to Qatar, Stephanie Mccallum, who is with us now on the phone or on the line, and who we'll hear from later today, is such a strong champion of Qatar and of this whole region. And she is always highlighting innovation and leadership and opportunities for real partnerships. And something that Ambassador Mccallum also emphasizes are the goals that Canada and Qatar share. And key among those is our shared commitment to peace through dialogue and to engaging in institutions and bodies and forums where we can really work together, including working through peacefully, sometimes through differences. And as we do so, also always trying to strengthen those institutions so they become more responsive and more inclusive. So today's event is timely for so many reasons. Many of us are celebrating International Women's Day. We'll call it International Women's Week. And this year in particular, we saw the impacts of the global pandemic and that the impacts it's had on women around the world, and seen that in every country in the world, women have been disproportionately negatively affected. So this is a particularly important year to reflect and to analyze and keep raising awareness about how absolutely critical and crucial it is that women be at all levels of decision making, and especially at the center of our planning for recovery. This is also the 20th anniversary, more or less, of the UN Security Council Resolution 1325, which the foundational resolution around this agenda of women, peace, and security, which, as you mentioned, I'm the ambassador for women, peace, and security in Canada. But one of my favorite statistics about this resolution is that it is the most translated of all Security Council resolutions. So it's translated into over 150 dialects, languages, and it's really been brought to life, often by civil society at community levels who use it to hold their own governments accountable. And to me, that speaks very much to the theme of today's event, the global and the local. And whenever I talk about these frameworks in Canada and elsewhere, I always make what I hope are two key points. So one is that women have been doing the important work of preventing war, ending it, fighting in it, and rebuilding for as long as we have had conflict. And so the fact that the UN Security Council and various governments began to recognize it more formally 20 years ago certainly doesn't mean that it was invented then. The other one, of course, is that these resolutions, especially Resolution 1325, are products of the mobilization and leadership of women from around the world, and especially at local levels. So as many of you know, the Beijing conference happened about 25 years ago, and women from every part of the world came together. And they found that they had very similar experiences during war. So they were active providing services, urging parties to negotiations, trying to create deals that would not just paper over the root causes of the conflict, but actually transform communities. So they were playing very active roles. And then when it came time for formal processes, they were largely excluded. But they took that to the Security Council, and 5 years later, they got this recognition. And that leadership on the council in particular came from Namibia, from Bangladesh, from Jamaica, and I'm very proud to say from Canada. And so big anniversaries like this one are opportunity to reflect, of course, on progress and on the remaining gaps that can show us and give us the future of our collective work, give us direction. So I'm hoping I can share just a few thoughts on these points today, both the areas of progress and opportunities for the future. So in terms of progress, we've seen a lot at the policy or normative level. We now have 10 resolutions that the Security Council focused on women, peace, and security. They span a broad range from peace negotiations, transitional justice, the security sector, preventing violent extremism, sexual violence, and armed conflict. So we have a lot of frameworks at the UN and other levels. We have about 90 countries in the world with a national action plan on women, peace, and security. We also even now have a handful with self-declared feminist foreign policies, including Canada. And Khadija did such a wonderful job at the beginning of sharing the statistics, so I won't repeat them, even though I was planning to. But the key takeaway, I think, from this is we now have much more evidence of how many women are actually participating. 20 years ago, we didn't have this data. And so researchers started to look through and even try to see the names of people who signed peace agreements and match them with photos. And that's how we started getting this data. So we have a lot more data now than we used to have. But I think many of you would agree probably that we're still not seeing the changes we need to see in terms of implementation. So in particular, we're not seeing a lot of investments in prevention of violent conflict. We're still not seeing the participation of women in peace negotiations themselves as a common and unacceptable practice to not implement. We are not seeing enough justice for survivors of conflict-related sexual violence. Our sisters in Afghanistan, in Yemen, in Libya, they're still fighting for direct representation and peace talks. Our sisters in Sudan secured a quota of 40% in the transitional parliament that you had to fight for despite having immensely qualified candidates and having been roughly 70% of the people who led the revolution. And they're still facing people who are saying we may not be able to meet that quota of 40%. Representation of women in UN peacekeeping is still about 6% in terms of uniformed personnel. And women peace builders, civilians, are still dramatically underfunded. And in Canada, we've certainly reflected on our gaps as well as some of our progress. And so much of our work on women's roles in conflict and conflict prevention and rebuilding is guided by Canada's National Action Plan. We're now on our second version. The first one was in 2011. We're now halfway through the second. And it has 5 overarching goals. So the first is on peace building, peacemaking, and post-conflict state building. The second on sexual and gender-based violence and abuse, human rights, gender equality in humanitarian settings and women's health and rights, and strengthening the capacity of peace operations. Now, as many of you know, the sort of so-called dirty secret of national action plans was that for a long time, there have been essentially 2 types. One is in so-called conflict-affected countries, and it focuses on a lot of domestic issues, including reform of the police or military or education or reconciliation. And the other type was in so-called donor countries, where women, peace, and security as an idea was an instrument of foreign policy and defense. And I think now we're seeing a much healthier blend of the 2. So, for example, in Canada, our first National Action Plan had 3 departments involved: Foreign Affairs, Defense, and our National Police. We now have 9, and that includes a focus, includes ministries that have a focus domestically. So the Department of Justice, Public Safety, of Immigration, and very crucially, it includes 2 departments that focus on Canada, the government's relationships with Indigenous peoples. And that is part of the challenge that Canada continues to have, is the recognizing the unique security challenges that exist for many women in Canada, and particularly for Indigenous women. Of course, having such a wide range of involvement means it can be much harder to coordinate, and we do struggle with that. But it also means we can raise a lot more awareness and learn from each other. The other thing I'm very proud of that we have developed through a lot of challenges is that we have an official role for civil society in our National Action Plan. So we have an advisory group that is co-chaired by the government and by civil society. And together we oversee progress. We meet twice a year to get reports on certain issues. We call meetings, and they can question diplomatic personnel, officials, politicians, etc. So to wrap up, I just want to share a few final thoughts related to the COVID-19 pandemic. And while it has been an awful experience, undoubtedly, I would propose a few opportunities to shape the future and a few maybe some windows that it might be opening up. The first is that I certainly hope we can emerge from this pandemic with an expanded definition of security. So it's reinforced to us that all of the guns and the tanks and the nuclear stockpiles mean very little if someone is beaten by their partner in their home every day, or if someone starves to death, or if they are sick with something that is treatable, but they die because they don't have access to basic health care. So expanding our understanding of security could lead to investing in things that represent a broader range of threats or opportunities like health systems and digital access for broader communities. And expanding this thinking about the definition of security has long been an element of this area of women, peace, and security. The second thing is that I think we can hopefully start to routinely disaggregate more data. So we need data broken down by a much broader range of factors, by gender, by age, by ethnicity, by income level, by geographic location, and so much more. And I don't know about around the world, but in Canada, for instance, sometimes we see front page news stories that talk about the different impacts of COVID-19 on men and women, on different communities, different racialized groups. We never used to have comments about disaggregated data on the front page of the newspaper. So hopefully that can continue, because if it does, I think it can help inform some smart policy responses. And finally, a third thing that I hope emerges from this pandemic is more valuing and investing in locally led responses, including local community organizations. So multilateral systems are essential. They have a lot of strengths, and the pandemic has also brought a lot of their shortcomings to the fore. And everywhere in the world, local organizations have stepped in to fulfill needs in really relevant ways. And despite being among the most poorly funded organizations in the world, many women's organizations pivoted to provide really life-saving responses like radio programs to counter misinformation about COVID-19, or teaching people to wear masks. And they are just absolutely essential in urging communities to trust vaccines and to have equitable vaccines across the world. So I think we need to do much more to recognize and invest in organizations that are trusted by their own communities, because that has an enormous impact on peace and security as well. And to do so, those organizations need more sustainable, more predictable funds, and much less cumbersome and difficult administrative requirements. And of course, the burden is on all of us in governments and institutions to remove those barriers that stand in the way of women's peace building. And to that end, I'll just say finally that Canada on Monday launched what we're calling a Peace by Her campaign. And that's because we heard very consistent analysis from women who build peace around the world. And as you know so well, women continue to lack recognition for the value of their work, support, particularly financial, access to the highest level of decision-making, and protection against growing threats to women, human rights defenders, and activists themselves. And so in October of last year, we announced several measures to help close those gaps. So new funding to go directly to women peace builders, an annual award, and a year-long campaign involving our embassies around the world who are going to try to take specific steps to close those gaps. So you can be sure that we'll be talking about what we hear today with our colleagues around the world, and that Ambassador Mccallum and I and our whole government are really committed to elevating the essential work of women in Canada, in Qatar, in Libya, in Yemen, in Sudan, in Afghanistan, and everywhere else, because we know that women around the world are crucial to building peace. So thank you so much for inviting me, and I very much look forward to hearing the other speakers. Shukran. Khadija, I think you're on mute.
سوري. آسفة. الآن يبدو أن الصوت الآن يصلكم صوتي بشكل
So can you
واضح؟
hear me? Is it loud and clear?
هل يصلكم صوتي بشكل واضح؟ نعم. شكرا إيران نعم شكرا. شكرا لسعادة السفيرة
I would like to thank Her Excellency Jacqueline O'Neill for this very, very positive intervention and also these different indications that she referred to when she talked about the peace initiative that was launched and also talking about hope. This is a hope that was expressed by Her Excellency the Ambassador for humanity to be able to put behind its back the pandemic and to have opportunities for hope. So we would like to get some references, some ideas for a discussion afterwards. So there are a number of initiatives. So perhaps this is leading to a lot of optimism for Arabs. So today there is a Libyan Minister Najla Al-Manqoush who has been appointed as Foreign Minister of Libya, and this is very positive indeed, particularly when there is political consensus on a woman in a country which is very much divided, where there is an armed conflict that had been running since 2014. I would like to move, so I'd like to thank Her Excellency Jacqueline O'Neill. I would like now to move to Her Excellency Sheikha Alia Al Thani, the Qatar Permanent Representative at the United Nations in Geneva in particular. So she started her work, so she represented the state of Qatar during her membership at the level of Human Rights Council and also the Executive Council of the WHO. So I would like to give the floor to Her Excellency Sheikha Alia.
سيدة خديجة لهذه الفرصة. طبعا الشكر للدكتور سلطان بركات مركز دراسات الإنساني على
Director of the Center for inviting me. I'll be speaking in English. شكرا جزيلا مرة أخرى لتوجيه الدعوة لي للمشاركة في هذا النقاش المهم، وبالطبع يسعدني كثيرا أن أكون بصحبة السفيرة جاكلين أونيل وأختي السيدة فاطمة جيلاني. وبناء على ما قالته السفيرة جاكلين، هي بدأت هذا النقاش بإعطائنا لمحة عامة عن ما يحدث على المستويات الدولية والإقليمية وفيما يتعلق تحديدا بدور المرأة في بناء السلام والأمن. دعوني ببدء أقول إن لدينا إطار شامل فردي للتعامل مع هذه الأمور. قرار مجلس الأمن 335 والذي هو أساس للعمل إضافة على المستويات الدولية والمحلية، لكن كما أشير إليه في تقرير دراسة صنع السلام في العالم واليوم أفتخر بكوني مشاركة فيه، وكما أشارت إليه السيدة جاكلين، السبب أن طبعا غياب الإرادة السياسية ووجود حوائج مؤسساتية. ومنذ الدراسة هذه التي صدرت عام 2015 فإن العراقيل عمليات صنع السلام لا تزال قائمة، رغم أن أجندة المرأة في صنع السلام مستمرة. مع وجود هذه المعوقات علينا في خاتمة المطاف أن نؤكد على ضرورة تطبيق ما يتم التوصل إليه، والأهم من كل ذلك هو ضمان المشاركة الفعالة للمرأة حتى في أوقات الأزمات مثل جائحة كوفيد-19. كما تعلمون فإننا شهدنا تقدما كبيرا أو انتكاسا
has put us at a stage now that we not only need to achieve what we have committed ourselves to, but we need to put extra effort in trying to hold back on the hard-won advances on women's rights on many fronts. Let me also point out and share with you some extra points on this issue. First, recognizing the role of women in peace building is not a task limited in time or limited to a set of actors. It is a shared task and responsibility of all of us and at all time. Despite the key role women play in brokering peace in their communities and the overwhelming evidence on the correlation between women's participation and the sustainability of peace, when the time comes for peace building, women are often absent or sidelined from the negotiating table at the national and international levels, even though proof have shown that they have succeeded at the bottom-up approaches when it comes to sustaining peace. We cannot use observer status as a substitute for real and effective participation for women. Women should not be on the sidelines observing, but an integral part of negotiations and decision-making on the future of their countries. So we really need to keep that point ahead of us. We need to make sure we implement what we preach. And I think that's a great example to set today. This brings me to a related issue, which is the need to bring together those directly involved in the conflict to the table, men and women alike, rather than relying on foreign experts. We need more mediators from the region affected, and most importantly, women. Thus, it is key that we invest in mediation capacity, negotiations, training, logistical support, and mediation skills should be provided to women to help their fully and meaningful participation in peace-building processes. And I really want to highlight the idea of capacity building. We talk about it a lot. I know many countries in the discussion today, Canada is playing a great role, practically speaking, when it comes to training for trainers, training women to play a greater role in negotiation processes. But I think we need more efforts. We need more countries like Canada, like the European Union, other countries. Qatar as well is playing an important role in providing that platform. The Center on Humanitarian Studies in Doha is providing that platform, but we need more effort put in that direction. I'm very pleased that the Afghan peace process has brought to the fore strong Afghan women leaders who have negotiated on behalf of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan and rallied support in their communities for a peaceful solution to the conflict. I'm sure my sister, of course, Fatima Jilani, will tell us more about that, and I'm very eager to hear her views on that. I'm proud to note that in our mediation efforts in Afghanistan, Sudan, and elsewhere, Qatar has played an important role in putting women first in these processes. And we've seen this recently in the Afghan peace negotiations as well, for us, it was key to make sure the Afghan women are on the head of the table during the negotiation process. I would like to also highlight that Qatar's policy on women and peace building is a comprehensive one, by proactively integrating the needs and perspectives of women and empowering women to contribute. Our strategy is linked with sustainable development and women's economic empowerment. In so doing, we create conditions for stability, security, and prosperity for all. In our policy framework, the promotion of transitional justice for women is extremely important. This is why Qatar has facilitated the establishment and committed financial support to the international, impartial, and independent mechanism for Syria, better known as the IIIM, to assist in the investigation and prosecution of persons responsible for the most serious crimes under international law committed in the Syrian Arab Republic since 2011. And that's a very I wanted to highlight that aspect as well, as it's key for women engagement and participation in this area. Given the alternative paths towards international criminal accountability and currently blocked, the IIM on Syria plays an important role in independently and impartially supporting the investigation of sexual violence and gender-based crimes, and is supporting the prosecution and the perpetrators for such crimes. This is valuable steps toward transitional justice for women in Syria, and Qatar is assisting in every way possible to secure its success. Let me just end on one note. I think I forgot to talk about young women and young women involvement in peace processes. Let me just note that Qatar will host a high-level global conference on youth inclusive peace processes in the first half of 2022 in collaboration with the United Nations alongside Colombia and Finland. In that conference, that will be another opportunity as well to openly and frankly discuss the meaningful inclusion and participation of young women in peace processes, how to build bridges among young women peace builders, and expand our toolkit of good practices to effectively include young women in current and future peace process. Sorry to prolong, and thank you again, and looking forward to the engagement today.
جميل جدا شكرا لك.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency Sheikh Aliya bint Ahmed bin Saif Al Thani. And it's nice to finish on a positive note, referring to young women and to commend the role of women in general in issues which are highly complex, like Afghanistan, Syria, and others. I'm sure we'll come back to these points later in the Q&A session. For now, let's hear Her Excellency Fatima Jilani. And she started as a spokesperson for the Mujahideen and in the days of the jihad against the Soviet Union. Then she became part of a larger assembly in 2001, 2003. She participated in the formulation of the Constitution of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, and she was a member of the Afghani Red Crescent for 11 years successively. And of course, these are years full of experience, and we eagerly await what Fatima has to say and how she played her role as an Afghani woman and took her to the foremost of the situation.
Your Highness Sheikh Aliya, Your Excellency Ambassador O'Neill, it is, of course, Dr. Sultan Barakat, my dear friend. This is a great pleasure and an honor to be in such a panel. Indeed, it is a historical time for Afghanistan, and it is very good that we have women to take part and make a bright future, inshallah, for Afghan people. The history of Afghanistan has always been with ups and downs regarding women and women's participation in every area of the Afghan life. We had queens like Gawhar Shad from the Timurid period, who was a very strong queen with an enormous amount of courage and a patron of art, music, and science and architecture. Today, you can see a remaining of what she had done and what she had achieved in museums and as miniatures and also as beautiful mosques in Herat. And also, we had downs, really downs, that women couldn't even get out of the house or go even to the hospital or to a clinic alone and without a male companion. Afghanistan is a tribal system. It's a tribal country, and tribes play a very, very important role in the life of people. So, like many other tribes, strong women could emerge, and they usually play a very important role when it comes to dispute between tribes and dispute between on water, that usually it is, or any other conflicts. But even that traditional participation of women in peace was ruined by a vast number of migration from Afghanistan, and war did harm this, like anything else, like many, many things which was harmed in my country. Even that tradition was not left intact. Now let's come back to the present situation. In the present situation, a prolonged war of 42 years, it cannot be solved without the presence of women. After all, half of population of Afghanistan is women, and I think a little bit more. So it is true that in this delegation we have only 4 women, but we have these women who are dedicated, who have a history in Afghanistan, who has a past, who has passed all sorts of exams to be worthy of this presentation. Why is it important to have women, as very rightly Ambassador O'Neill and also Sheikh Alia put it, that when women are involved in peacemaking, it is usually a practical peacemaking, usually sustainable peacemaking, because women can bring practicality to negotiations. They are usually free of political, linguistic, and all sorts of conflict which exist in countries like Afghanistan. So they can be a plus to the negotiations. Today, the role that women, these 4, myself and, take some credit, myself and my 3 sisters are playing in this negotiation table, I think it is very important. First of all, because of us, the international sight turned towards us. It was important to see what we women will do. It is important to see that actually in this male-dominated country, women do play an important role. This is the reality of today's Afghanistan, that women cannot be ignored. They should be part of everything. And of course, peace is not an exception. The UN, the EU, many humanitarian and women's organizations were interested to see that what can they do and how could they help and how we are doing. The presence of women also brought something else. That opened door for the minorities of Afghanistan. So we make sure that when we talk about women, we will not forget about the minorities of Afghanistan. We sort of connected it to women's issue. How could a woman be successful in a male-dominated country like Afghanistan? It's a very, very tall order. It is a man could be just a politician, but when you are a woman politician, you have to pass many exams. What you have done, what is your character, what you have achieved, and even sometimes cruelly, what is your family background, which is not very fair, but it unfortunately does play a role. Of course, education is part of it. If you're an educated woman, you can bring success, and today it can bring success to the negotiation table. So it is important to have women here. One of the things that, in my experience, which helped, is to be educated in Islamic affairs. Today in Afghanistan, our politics is totally entangled with Islam, and so it is an Islamic country. The Islamic Republic of Afghanistan is an Islamic country, but the Islamic values are really taken seriously here. You have to be educated in this. I myself, at the age of 40, I decided that if I want to stay in politics in Afghanistan, I have to go and study Islamic studies and fiqh to be prepared. The whole four madahib, plus the Sunni madahib, plus the Jafari madhab, to be prepared to be helpful in Afghanistan. Today, how do we include other women? Because we are only 4, but how to be the voice of the rest of the women in Afghanistan? As Sheikh Alia put it very strongly, the presence of young women who are worried about their future, how to bring their voice here. So every day, sometimes several times per day, we are, thanks to the technology, we are in touch with all over Afghanistan, women's networks, women's organizations, human rights organizations, and youth councils. We talk to them and listen to them and take their messages very seriously. I have several times quoted this young woman who spoke from a very remote area. She told me that I want you to understand that if my future is very peaceful, meaning the lack of war, but I cannot go to study, I cannot go to work, and I cannot foresee a bright future for myself, I don't want that peace. So it has to be taken very seriously, all this. Yes, on the other side of the table, we don't have women. But we are also from Afghanistan. We understand that what they go through. But it has opened the door. They saw that women are negotiators. They are not just for decoration or just a token to come. They are tough talkers. They are tough negotiators. So we hope that one day women will come from their side. But blaming them, let me blame our own politicians also. When they send their representatives, hardly any one of them were women. They're mostly men. I want to end with that today, when we are in the negotiation table, we are not talking just about women's affairs. We are involved, we are scattered in different committees. Every aspect of tomorrow's peaceful Afghanistan will be examined by us, and we want to be part of this, and we want to bring those voices that we listen everything to this negotiation table. Thank you.
شكرا سيدة فاطمة.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Fatima Al-Jilani, for all the valuable points you have made, which have really taken us far to Afghanistan. And by the way, I have visited Afghanistan and I have seen the presence of women, although my visit was only to Kabul in 2014, but nonetheless, the presence of women and participation was clear and evident. We don't have much time left. Maybe at the end of this webinar, we can discuss further the role of women in peacemaking. But it is important that what Mrs. Fatima Al-Jilani said, that if if women were not present in the negotiations first, that they have been present at the local level, at the international level. The, women were present at the level of local ministers, at the level of representatives at the UN and peacemaking, etc. This leads me to raise the question of not just what women can contribute at an elitist level at the top. What about the ordinary citizen? And thank you, Mrs. Fatma Jilani. You mentioned education as a key factor in this. We come to the end of the first session. We move now to the second session, which will be moderated by Maisa Abu Hilal from the Center for Conflict Studies. Maisa, the floor is yours. Thank you very much, Khadija. Thank you, Your Excellencies. And I would like to thank all the participants with us and all our followers. It's my pleasure now to start the second session to deal with the local aspect of this, which is a pillar in the role of women in any negotiation or peace building. More often than not, any talk about women and their role in peacemaking will tend to focus on the suffering and the damage done to women at times of war and armed conflict in many countries, some of which we are not able to have any participation by women from. But yet, what is good news at least is we can deal with, rather than the suffering of women and theorizing about what can be done, we would instead focus on practical experiences. And emanating from this, we started in this center a program on the role of women in peacemaking that Khadija has alluded to. We are aiming to start a network of participants from NGOs, research centers, decision makers at the national, regional, and international levels to determine an active participation for women both at the theoretical and practical level in peacemaking. Four countries are involved: Yemen, Libya, Sudan, and Afghanistan are involved in our project. And what distinguishes this program is it focuses particularly on partners like main actors, change makers, decision makers, NGOs, etc. And it's my pleasure today to invite partners from Libya, Afghanistan, and Yemen. These are ladies who made a strong impression through their active participation in peacemaking, conflict solving, and societal development, and whether at the level of decision making, policy making, developmental projects, NGOs. We have a group of different ladies, but um, they complement one each other. Dr. Afaf Yahya from Sudan was invited to join us, but she had to apologize at the last minute for circumstances beyond her control. Now we move to Ms. Rania Lifnak. First of all, she will be presenting a youth experience, and this is what Sheikha Alia Al Thani has talked about. Rania Lifnak will speak about the role of young Libyan women in peacemaking at the local level. She is a founding member and director of programs at PABO, and she also has a long experience in working with local and international organizations for more than 10 years. And she also dealt with programs supported by USAID. Rania, of course, represents the importance of young women in peacemaking. Please tell us about the experience of young women in Libya vis-a-vis the challenges you face at the cultural, societal level, and how you manage to overcome that.
May the peace and blessings of God be upon you all. Welcome to you all. I'm really glad to take part in this session. And I would like to congratulate you on the occasion of International Women's Day. So I know the day is the 8th of March, but I think that each and every day is a day where we should celebrate women. I do apologize, Mesa. I've just came back from work an hour ago. So please, if you can allow me to speak in English. It does
quick points to share with all of you. So I want to also to talk about the woman role in peace building, especially the young women, as you mentioned. Allow me first to talk about the things that we are focusing on right now. We're focusing on hate speech against women, let's say hate speech based on gender, based on race, and based on tribe. And this is our experience in these few years. We also worked throughout the past years on peace building among conflicting areas. And also, we also worked on the educational grassroots to educate people about women's role and also the diversity in general. We also conducted multiple campaigns, or let's say it's one focused campaign on multiple stages to advocate for stopping the war, because the war, one of the major, it have a major impact on women generally. In Libya, I would like to summarize few points on women experience. We usually expect educated women to participate in peace building processes and to create an influence. This is what we expect. However, in Libya, the situation was different. In many cases, and many case studies actually, in 3 events I remember, there was a war happening between 2 regions and women stopping that war. In two occasions, most of the women were even uneducated. So they did not have the technical knowledge to stop the despot. However, their natural feelings and their natural knowledge allowed them to stop the despot between 2 conflicting parties. So I would like Yani to focus on this and also to commend those women. And that means that women indeed can participate into building peace, even if she did not receive the education. Yet it's very important for us and for everybody to support and to build the capacity of women in order for their efforts to be more structural and more organized. Let me speak a bit on the Libyan experience, for example. We have more than 60% of Libyan women who are considered, for example, unemployed, and most of them are also young women, even though they learn in the same rate as males. We have Libyan women voting at similar rates of Libyan men, even though they have no political participation. We have in the local governance, we have 1 woman in each municipal council, and yet it's not that enough. However, it's something to shed some light on. On the revolution in 2011 and the downfall of Gaddafi, there was a major role of Libyan women, and then they were marginalized in peace processes and in leading positions. This is something I wanted to focus on. On the COVID, I wanted to shed light on something on the COVID. I monitored at least 9 trainings and online trainings, and most of the participants were also women. Like 90% of the participants who were focusing on online education and serving their communities, whether in peace building or in the education system, were also women. So we have a major role for women on all aspects. However, women remain as marginalized. Today, actually, Libya have announced a unified government after a long time of conflict and political division. As Khadija mentioned, we have one of the ministers is woman, the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And I wanted also to speak about the ancient experience of Libya. I know that most of you think that Libya is an Arabic country. However, Libya is a country that speaks the Arabic language and have diversities of languages, diversities of races, and diversities of backgrounds that we are proud of because it really creates a beautiful painting. In our ancient culture, actually, 1,300 years ago, 1,500 years ago, the woman was a queen in Libya. The woman was a tribe leader. She was a troop leader. She was a fighter, fighting for her country. Actually, you may have heard of the Amazons fighters. The Amazons fighters, they come from Greek, from North Africa. It's our land. This is the history of our land. And now, after 1,500 years later, we are struggling to have a representation, which is rightfully for us. It was drastic change that happened to the community, unfortunately, a major drop in the respect for women. And this is something that we need to tackle. This is something that we need to look back and learn actually from our own histories. You know, we have examples of Dihya, she's the Amazigh queen, and we have Tenihinyan, also the Tuareg queen, and we have many prominent women throughout the past few years. I wanted to talk about 3 main points or 3 main challenges, and then I have 3 main solutions or
رانيا معاكي دقيقة واحدة فقط إذا أمكن.
Okay, تمام. Our communities,
Rania, you still have only 1 minute.
Our communities are burdened with conflicts, so even the civil societies are very exhausted because they have so much challenges as individuals. So therefore, the international donors have to make specific considerations for each area. Libya, for example, had no civil society before 2011, and therefore the culture of civil activism is a bit limited. Also, the security vacuum resulting from the conflict and political division and civil war have caused many threats to women's life. And there were women who were assassinated throughout the past year. Some of them, they were kidnapped, and nobody knows anything about them. So this is something that needs to be tackled, and this is one of the major pillars that is affecting women participation. We need to focus on shedding lights for the community on successful women, especially the women who worked on peace building. And also we recommend, or let's say I recommend the donor organization to reevaluate their approach with civil society and make a custom approach based on a country situation and clarify their competition process, their funding decisions, and how it and the impact. All that is very important points. And yeah, that's it, I guess. And thank you again.
Thank you رانيا، شكرا جزيلا رانيا لهذا الطرح الوافي
Thank you very much for this very extensive explanation and comprehensive idea. So you shined light on the role of Libyan women throughout history and the challenges that women face today. And also, you have left us with a number of recommendations that I hope would be the scope of discussion in this session at the end. I would like to take the point that you talked about when it comes to education, and I would like to move to Afghanistan. I would like to give the floor to Rahila Siddiqui, who has established a fund for the education of women, and she is an advisor for civil service in Afghanistan, and also she took part in UN Habitat. So in the last 20 years, Afghan women have exerted a great deal of efforts that have led to so many relative successes in her representation in the negotiations. We have Mrs. Fatima Jilani with us here today. But despite all that, so guaranteeing education for women and girls is one of the most important kind of challenges for political security and many other reasons. Can you shine light on the experience of Afghan women and the initiatives that have been run by women, and also your efforts that you have exerted in confronting this kind of challenge, and also to build peace, particularly in the different marginalized areas and governorates? Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Maisa Jan. It's my privilege to be among all the great experts and our interested attendees. Afghan women are the one who demands sustainable peace and complete ceasefire more than anyone. Although they are struggling and suffering to gain sustainable peace, they have been contributing for peace building. At women's leadership level, there are multiple efforts in place. For example, we have sent letters to a range of people, including leaders at regional level, Islamic leaders, women leaders, UN Secretary and General, and NATO, and we have conducted several roundtables, written letters, interviews, and post social media as part of our Women Civil Society Summit, and that we organized countries level, regional countries level, civil and political panels, and at EU level, we mobilized continuous discussions among Afghan community. In addition, we have huge number of young generation who are engaged in new activities. We have several of first police, first mayor, first governor, first pilot, and first taekwondo player with gold medal, and many other grassroots level champions have seen remarkable achievement due to the benefit of education. My personal experience that more focus on women at grassroots level. Through peace education will massively enhance the number of peace builders and grants of and agents of change, which could help create a sustainable peace building process. During the civil war in early 1990s, and as a Kabuli displaced woman in North Afghanistan, I used UN Habitat leading position in community development to establish a holistic and organic community forum led by women with the several life skills. It was organic and organized and owned and led by women. And women of the villages at Yul Marab of Mazar Sharif, and as the first community forum in 1995. When Taliban arrived in 1998, the only program with large scale which were allowed to operate was the community forum program. 25,000 women were working together in pasta factories in Kabul, Kandahar, Herat, Farah, and Mazar Sharif, and thousands of them had home-based education, life skills, program for women, including Bamiyan and Parwan. Because there were women with these capacities at the grassroots level, when the transitional government came, our current president, Dr. Seba Ashraf Ghani, was the head of AACA. After some analysis, he chose UN Habitat Community Forum model to be replicated at national level, because there were already established grassroots level women with capacity in at least 7 big provinces of Afghanistan. Also, our organic approach of women-led community forum were able to continue during the Taliban. We designed the National Solidarity Program with World Bank and the Ministry of MRD and trained 24 facilitating partners for implementation of the program. Today, NSP is one of the huge and successful community development program and has a Women Development Council in all 2005 villages of Afghanistan. Of course, they need a lot of capacity building as well. Therefore, enhancing young and grassroots level women's peace building and comprehensive life skills education is critical for peace building, durable peace building, and post-conflict reconstruction. As the founder of the Farhonda Trust, my focus has also been to build the capacity of young women at the grassroots level. We provide higher education, scholarship, and mentorship to disadvantaged and talented young women from rural Afghanistan. And in return, they are working with communities to educate women in their areas, because in addition to academic skills, we mentor and coach them how to build the capacity and life skills of other women at their community, at their workplace, and also during their studies at university as part of their peer group studies. But there were also challenges. We received warning messages, face-to-face confrontation. It is a challenging job to work with women in Afghanistan. And women activists of all walks of life are facing challenges and security threat. The horrible types of terror women on the street experience all are inhuman acts that should stop. This can be achieved through deep analysis and assessment of the peace talk process. Afghan women want peace with dignity through strengthening democracy, development opportunities for underprivileged citizens, as Fatima Jan said, women, youth, and minorities in particular, and women to be owner of their own building, a peace building process. Need for reintegration of Taliban should sort out carefully for sustainable peace building, such as formation of united government, disarmament, and security sector reform. Any new government form should be based on the Afghanistan Constitution and the practice of democracy. A detailed implementation of mechanism.
سيدة راحلة معنا 30 ثانية فقط.
Okay, don't worry.
You have 30 seconds, ma'am.
30 seconds. So I would like to emphasize on one very important recommendations, as Sheikha Alia said, and also Fatima Jan said, realizing an importance of youth involvement to ensure the program sustainability to offer accessibility to disadvantaged and talented young women, to reach higher education through the provision of a scholarship mentorship in order to enhance the future family leaders and agent of change, to contribute back to the community and in return. And finally, I would say that we, the Afghan women, will not go backwards. We will stay to fight for our rights and contribute for the development process and peace building process of Afghanistan, even if we face many challenges, but we will not stop ourselves. Thank you.
شكرا لك راحلة جان.
Thank you very much, Rahila Jan. And Jan, and I would like to thank Mrs. Rahila in particular, because she always concentrates on the role of local communities, and also she concentrates on the popular level because these roles are oftentimes marginalized. And this is the message of women and peace building, and this is the side that we try to cover because there is concentration on leadership, but sometimes we do forget about the popular side, the grassroots, and also the teaching of young women and enabling women and giving them the techniques required for them to be able to be pioneering in peace building. I would like, before I move into Dr. Intilaq, I would like to remind our participants to pose questions on the Zoom chat box, and also they can also pose questions on the different platforms. These questions are going to be discussed, they're going to be answered in the last session. I'm happy that in this session we're going to concentrate on youth, and I would like now to move to Yemen. I would like to give the floor to Dr. Intilaq Al-Mutawakkil, the founder of the development of young leadership, and also she concentrated on development, gender, and she is also a university professor, and she is a member of National Dialogue Conference and also the committee that is in charge of drafting a new constitution. Dr. Intilaq, you have a large experience, really diverse experience, comprehensive, I should say, that covers different levels, different spheres. And I would like you, if you can kindly talk about the efforts exerted by Yemeni women in peace building and the most important challenges that Yemeni women were able to confront in the light of the very intricate circumstances in Yemen that we know some of. So the floor is yours, Dr. Intilaq. Good evening. I would like to thank you very much for your kind introduction, Maysa. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. First of all, I would like to thank the Center for Conflicts and Humanitarian Studies, represented by Dr. Sultan Barakat and my dear Maysa, who exerts a great deal of efforts in order to integrate also women at the Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies with the help of Dr. Sultan Barakat, and also to reinforce the role of women in peace building. So my presentation is going to be a summary of the framework that is used by the institution, which is Youth Development Institute in Peace Building. This is going to be used as a model that I would like to underline, and also I would like to concentrate on the developmental level. So the different speakers talked about the decision-making level, talked about the educational level, and here I would like to concentrate on the youth development model. And I am not activist. I'm not active in this institution. So their conditions entail that the director of this initiative should be a young lady, no older than 35 years old. So they consult me when they need any expertise in this field. So I would like to share a screen with you if you allow me. I would like to give you a general idea about the efforts exerted at the level of our institution. So I'm sharing the screen with you now. Yes, we can see the screen. Yes. So if you allow me, this is the screen that I wanted to share with you. So the institution, which is Young Leadership Institute. So this is an institute that is in charge and interested of the development of youth, and I would like to talk about the role of the institute in peace building. And as you perhaps know, so the youth in Yemen are the wealth of Yemen. That is why there is a great deal of importance that is being given to youth in particular. And also a great deal of importance is given to development and peace building. So why youth participated in the Arab Spring that started in 2011. So the problematic in Yemen was exclusion. So I'm sorry. So exclusion, oppression. So it seems that the screen that we can see now does not include the PowerPoint. It is just an image. So if you can cancel the screen that you have put for the participants, and I'm going to share the PowerPoint presentation. Yes, it is cancelled. I'm going to open the PowerPoint presentation from my side. Yes, were you able to open the PowerPoint presentation?
دقيقة. نعم الآن مفروض أوكي.
Thank you so much.
أعتقد إنه
تسلم.
أوكي تمام. هل ممكن تحركي؟ أوكي هل ممكن تحركي أنت إذا أمكن؟
أكيد.
وصلنا إلى أسباب مشاركة
So we have reached the reasons behind the participation of young men and women in the Arab Spring, as it is called. So there was exclusion, oppression, also lack of justice, injustice in opportunities. So the opportunities dedicated to youth were very limited, with the exception of youth who have their parents in power. There was no development, enough development, and also there was a great deal of corruption. Corruption was spread a great deal. That is why young men and women felt that the future is not theirs. And that is why they have taken to the different squares, they have taken to the street in Yemen. Can you move to the following slide? So the strategy that was undertaken by the Institute when it comes to peace building in particular, the strategy concentrated on individuals, and as a result of that, there were a number of programs that concentrated on peace building. We had a program called Women and Policies or Politics, and we have had women leadership for peace in order to make the voices of women heard at the level of the different areas, at the grassroots level as well. And also we linked the individual level to the institutional level. So we did not limit our efforts in our program, which is Women Leadership Program. We did not only concentrate on making their voices heard, but also we have had what is called the granddaughters of Balqis. So these were leaders, and we tried to make the voices of the granddaughters of Balqis heard. So we concentrated on track 2, discussions, negotiations. We made also their voices voices heard in the first track. And I'm very, very happy, I have to say, about these efforts. Some of the granddaughters of Balqis were empowered, were able to become leaders at the local level, and also they participated at the international level. Also, the institution worked on creating the right environment. So there were a number of policy papers that concentrated on the participation of women in peace building, and this is an added value when it comes to peace building. We have had another paper which concentrated on the impact of war on the participation of women, the impact of the blockade on the activities of women. There was another study that was undertaken whereby we tried to study the different local tools and try to build the peace as a result of that, the integration of the tools that exist with modern tools, and as a result of which we would be able to integrate all these successful tools that have proven to be adequate for them to be used at a larger scale. So the institution worked on these three levels, and this was the framework that was adopted. Mesa, if you can move to the following slide. So there were a number of starting points. We have the individual level, and also we have this second level, which is the level of decision making. So the approach that had been adopted concentrated on linking the different pathways. So we did not concentrate on building local women. Also, we communicated with the second pathway or track and the third track. And also we have established a number of networks whereby we worked on so this is my grandchild. Can you wait for me, please, until I end my intervention, please? So we try to link these three pathways or tracks, as I have mentioned. We try to make sure that the voices of local women is heard internationally. Can you move to the following framework? Also, we have used gender. So gender was an intersecting component in all programs. We were very much keen to make sure that we're going to be diplomatic in the use of gender for us to not to be rejected by the community. And as Mrs. Fatma had said, so we try to talk about the religious dimension, talk about justice, and these are reflective of the principles that we have in Islam. So these were the frameworks that we have used. And also, I do remember one of the programs, which is Khadija's program, and that was sponsored by Her Highness Sheikha Moza and by Silatik. And Her Highness Sheikha Moza visited us in 2010, and the institute was the first place that was visited by Her Highness in Yemen in order to assess the program that was launched at the level of our institute in cooperation with Silatik. So there were a number of youthful young initiatives. When we talk about gender, we did not talk about women only. We integrated males and females, young men and young women, because the positions of power are covered by men in particular, and also women. So the objective is to create a joint free future, and also for them to accept women leader, as Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, accepted Khadija as a businesswoman, and he used to be a worker who used to work for his wife, working in his wife's business. So this was the model that was emulated at the level of our institute. So let me talk about the challenges then. I would like to remind you of Balqis, who made peace with Suleiman, and also Arwa al-Sulayhiya also ruled Yemen. Yemen knew conflicts at that time, but she chose peace. So we have to say that organizations that are led by women are perhaps neglected by many people, by most people, and they are not supported enough, particularly if there are women leaders and also young leaders. So if they include both, then the situation becomes much more difficult. Also, the other challenge is the participation of women, and the peace programs are not considered a priority, and this has moved from the local decision makers into international decision makers. They said this is not the time for the participation of women. Now we would like to stop the war. This is what we want, and this is not true. The war is not going to end unless women and young women and men in particular participate in particular in this endeavor, because they are the future and they are the ones who should draft the peace document. So I'm going to stop here, and if you have any questions afterwards, I'll stand ready to answer them. I would like to thank you, Dr. Intilaq. I would like to thank Dr. Rania and Dr. Rahila. I would like to thank you for this very rich session and for this comprehensive intervention that concentrated on the leadership level, the youth level, and also the developmental level. And also it covered the educational level. So what we are aiming to achieve through our program and peace building, the role of women in peace building, is to have a participation of different kind of expertise or levels of expertise, because there are so many challenges, so many initiatives that are established from the local community itself in Yemen, for instance, that would be useful perhaps for women in Libya or in Afghanistan. So that is why this is what we are aiming to achieve from the session today and the other sessions that are being organized. I'm not going to be lengthy. I would like to move to the third session now. I would like to give the floor to Her Excellency Ambassador Stephanie Mccallum to start this diplomatic session. The floor is yours, Dr. Stephanie.
Thank you so much, Maisa. Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to join you this evening. I do want to make sure that we have time for questions. I see some popping up in the chat, so I hope you will forgive me. I'm going to cut my intervention very short. I'm going to skip the summaries of my colleagues' interventions and limit my introduction to telling you a little bit about them, and defer to them to tell you about what is happening in their countries of responsibility. So I have the honor to introduce you first to Her Excellency Ms. Fatma Mohammed Rajab, who is the current ambassador of Tanzania to Qatar. She arrived in 2017 following the inauguration of the embassy here. She's the first ambassador and female ambassador here for Tanzania. Previous to Doha, Ambassador Rajab served as an assistant director in the departments of Asia and Australasia and Africa in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and East Africa Cooperation of Tanzania. She's also served as a diplomat in China and Nigeria, and I look forward to hearing from her as I turn over the floor to her now.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. And first of all, I would like to thank Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies for the opportunity they have given me to speak on this occasion of the commemoration of International Women's Day, with focus on the role of women in peace building from global to local levels. But special thanks should go to Professor Sultan Barakat for inviting me this evening. So my presentation will focus on the role of women in Tanzania in peace building and promoting a culture of peace. So let me start by saying first, Tanzania is renowned as a country that has enjoyed uninterrupted peace and stability since independence. So today I will focus more on key elements and approaches that Tanzania has taken in fostering a culture of peace from the grassroots level, national level, and at global level. I consider that key element is to have a bottom-up approach in fostering a culture of peace right from the grassroots level to the national level and to global levels. This is because it will not be easy to achieve global peace if we did not, among other things, promote a culture of peace right from the community level. So at local level, key instruments used to promote peace and stability through national frameworks and strategies. One of it is our coat of arms, which is our national emblem, which comprises of pictures of a man and a woman, the theme of cooperation and gender equality in Tanzania. It also holds a motto in Swahili national language, words uhuru na umoja, meaning freedom and unity, signifying our value for independence and togetherness. As one nation without any gender, religion, or tribal discrimination. But most importantly, one key instrument of that motto is the nurturing of our one common language, Swahili, which was established under the Constitution as our national language to connect all tribes, communities in Tanzania with a view to foster peace and unity that we so cherish today. I just want to show you a little bit of this. This is our coat of arms. You see here a man and a woman. So this one is show equality in gender between men and women. So having said that, there's another strategy which was used by the nation at the local level, which was the formation of group cohesion of youth, women, and elderly in the townships, council, and political parties to engage them in decision-making of their day-to-day activities and addressing common challenges facing their society. These groups have intensified to create peace and harmony in the country. So at the national level, our national education system created an environment where students build a culture of coexistence through the unified language of Kiswahili as a tool for fostering unity and mutual understanding. So the use of one common language in our education curriculum removed all the barriers of ethnicity, religion, and tribes, and brought about a unified and societal interaction. So this sense of building a community of one nation became a solid foundation for peace building in its own unique way in Tanzania. So through these strategies and frameworks, women, being the main supporters of families in the communities, have been the pillars that held all these structures together. They have been at the forefront and center of all initiatives to build and sustain a culture of peace at the local level in Tanzania. This is because women, as local peace builders, have great interaction and access to communities, as they are eyes and ears on the ground for conflict prevention and sustaining peace from the grassroots level. So at the government levels also, there's a strategy that the government has put under the Constitution of the formation of special parliamentary seats for women to increase women representation in the parliament, and that they will contribute to the enactment of laws for women to bring equality between men and women. So this strategy helped a lot to hold various top positions, help a lot those women to hold various government positions, such as ministers, such as CEOs of big companies, such as ambassadors, and many other high post positions. As we speak currently, we have the first woman vice president in Tanzania because of the arrangement by the government of special parliamentary seats. So women have been able to raise their voice in the parliament and also to enact laws which will also favor women in the society. So with this structure, Tanzania has played extraordinary role in maintaining peace in the country since independence. And no doubt that what have been put together at the local level builds a solid foundation for our women involvement for national, regional, and global peace building. So this is why you see what is important. If you create peace in the grassroots level, they will also, you prepare the women also to have confidence in building peace in the global level too. So however, as Tanzania is surrounded by neighboring countries facing instability, violence, and civil wars, Tanzania has seen the influx of refugees in the country heighten insecurity around the common borders. So with this, Tanzania has thus played extraordinary role at regional and global level in conflict resolution, conflict management, and seeking negotiated solution and facilitating peace agreements in Great Lakes region and beyond. At regional and global level, Tanzania has deployed thousands UN peacekeepers around the world, including women of high-ranking army positions within the framework of UN and AU. For example, in 2019, 2,304 peacekeepers were deployed, and out of those, 184 peacekeepers, they are women from Tanzania. So with this achievement, we have been observed by many Tanzanian women from both local and national women leaders participated in peacekeeping missions worldwide and took part of active role in high-level policy dialogues which promote and sustain peace in the region. Tanzania has had a good track record of women who have been involved in the high institutions and world organizations for peace and security and held high-ranking positions in the region and global organizations. Such positions held by Tanzanian women, including the UN Deputy Secretary, Ambassador Dr. Asha Rose Migiro, was in Tanzania. She's now currently our High Commission in the United Kingdom. The first Executive Secretary of International Conference of Great Lakes Region, Ambassador Ambassador Liberata Mulamula, who led peace effort in the most volatile region, Great Lakes of Africa, which experienced in the past endless wars in the DRC, Burundi, and Rwanda genocide. We also have Secretary General of UN World Conference on Women in Beijing in 1995, which was led to the success of the conference. And this lady, which is also known Mama Peking, is Ambassador Gertrude Bongela. She's also from Tanzania. She's also the first president of the Pan-African Parliament and also the founder of Advocacy for Women in Africa. And also we have now the Executive Secretary of SADC by Dr. Stegomena Lawrence Tax. She's also from Tanzania. So these are all powerful women, which are also derived from our grassroots level structure and also from our national framework of our government and also of our parliament. So these are the achievements which also we have also seen because of those very good structures and arrangement from the grassroots level. So to wrap up, I just want to say that Tanzania also has ratified key regional and international legal instruments on women, peace, and security that further demonstrate its commitment to the Agenda 2063 and thus involve fully its women to participate in the peace building. Through this support, Tanzania has played active role to the UN search for international economic development, peace, and security. So thanks to the UN women presence in Tanzania and its active engagement in the country, there are efforts now to promote various initiatives in implementing the Women, Peace, and Security Agenda. This includes development of the National Action Plan for the implementation of the UN Security Council Resolution 1325, the process which was officially launched in October last year, 2020, including initiating a high-level dialogue on the role of Tanzanian women in peace and security as part of the commemoration of 20th anniversary since the adoption of that groundbreaking resolution 2063. So in conclusion, it is very important for stakeholders to take action towards placing women in the front and center of the peace and security agenda, as there would be no sustainable peace or development if half of the population is left out or if women continue to be seen as victims instead of being agents of peace and transformative change. As the late President Nelson Mandela said on South Africa's Women's Day in 1996, as long as, and I quote, as long as the nation refuses to acknowledge the equal role of more than half of itself, it is doomed to failure. End of the quote. So I hope today's roundtable conversation would provide us a good inspiration to find ways and means to support the women peace and security agenda, especially to inspire and support the local women peace builders. So I thank you, shukran, and a happy International Women's Day. Thank you very much.
Shukran, Ambassador Fatma. Now I have the honor to turn it over to Her Excellency Ms. Samia Zakaria. She's the current ambassador of Ethiopia to Qatar. She previously worked as the Chief Executive Officer of the Ethiopian Central Statistics Agency and as a chairperson of the National Electoral Board of Ethiopia with the rank of minister. She acted as ambassador to Nigeria, Equatorial Guinea, Togo, Benin, and Sao Tome and Principe. Over to you, Your Excellency. Ambassador Samia, you're on mute.
Oh, okay. Okay, now. Okay, sorry. Thank you very much to give me this floor, even though being the last speaker is not good. Some way is good. You have to finish it fast, I guess. So I'm really honored to be in this panel. I would like to thank Professor Sultan to give me this opportunity, and Your Excellencies, distinguished speakers. Good evening, all protocol observed. I think this I learned from Nigeria. Anyway, so before I go to my reflection, let me start with a brief introduction with my country. Ethiopia is an ancient country. We consider Ethiopia as a land of origin for many reasons. Some of it and outstanding ones are: Ethiopia is a cradle of humanity, where the earliest human ancestor was discovered in the Afar Depression in the northern eastern part of the country, aged 3.2 million years. It's the source of Blue Nile, the great river, whose power and fertility nurtured the origin of civilization. It's the origin of coffee, Ethiopia's gift to the whole world. That's what we brand our country as the land of origin. Ethiopia has a long history as a state formation. It can be traced for more than 3,000 years. It is the nation that was never colonized by foreign power and kept its independence. Ethiopia is a landlocked country in the Horn of Africa with a population of 110 million, comprised with diversified religion, ethnic, and language compositions. Currently, the government structure of the country is a federal with 9 autonomous regional states and 2 city administration. As you may know, Ethiopia is currently the first woman president, and half of its cabinet ministers are women. Among these, the Ministry of Health and Ministry of Peace are women. They have been struggling. The Ministry of Health was struggling with COVID, and the Ministry of Peace is also struggling with the conflicts that are being, erupted here and there recently in my country. As you know, when we talk about conflicts, I think many speakers have been already speaking about it. It can arise among community members due to various reasons depending on their locality. These conflicts could be intra or inter clans, ethnics, political, due to boundary, could be also related with the farmland or irrigation or with the resource distribution. So in such cases, the contribution of women leaders in conflict resolution has been there, especially at local level. even though there is a lack of consolidated data or information about this indigenous conflict resolution, but their contribution is immense. So to indicate some of the experiences of the indigenous conflict resolution in the local level are, we have different localities with different names. For example, in my own hometown, they call it Samti. And then I remember my mother was also one of the member of that women leaders, elders. They don't have, formal education actually, but they managed to resolve the problem that people were killing each other. And also there are in Oromia, Harasinke, in the Gurgura and Isa, they have their own clans, between clans, and with in others also, they call it Shimgalina. So many different names. All of them are at local, at grassroots level. So the other, as Her Excellency Sheikh Aliyah said, we need to bring these elder women and to empower them and to give them a role and to empower them to maybe educate them or build their capacity, because they really support, they really practical in bringing peace, are practical. So I think it's very important to bring them in and then to build their capacity by training and this kind of things. When it comes to the other one is at national level, as I have already indicated, the Minister of Peace with her team is striving her level best to resolve the conflicts created in different parts of the country, especially lately. And then they have put a project called the Women in Peace. This project is funded by UNDP and is implemented by the ministry. So the overarching outcome of this project is an empowered women group, actors, institutions with the commitment of resolving recurrent or emerging conflicts through building sustainable peace and stability in the country. To enhance peace in the country, especially by engaging youth, the Ministry of Peace came up with a voluntary community service program in which just last week, 10,000 youth volunteers have been graduated. This program was designed to train and deploy young volunteers to community services to foster cohesion and peace building. These are some of the initiatives that currently are being. And the other is at global level, Ethiopians have been participating in peacekeeping missions. It goes back in 1950s. The first Ethiopian international contribution to UN authorized peacekeeping force was in Korea, 1951 to 54. The second contribution was in Congo, 1960 to 64. And then in 1994 in Rwanda, followed by Burundi, Liberia, Cote d'Ivoire, Darfur, Abyei, South Sudan, and Somalia. It is to be noted that Ethiopia is one of the major peacekeepers contributing countries in the world. We have about 7,500 peacekeepers. Among them, 600 of them are women, and Ethiopia is a leading contributor of female peacekeepers. It's believed that, I think, as Her Excellency Ambassador O'Neill mentioned it, it's believed that more women in peacekeeping means more effective peacekeeping. Women peacekeepers improve overall peacekeeping performances, have greater access to communities, help in promoting human rights, and encourage women to become the meaningful part of peace and political process. With this, I will end. Mine is very short, even though the time is not there. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Shukran, Ambassador Samia. On behalf of myself and all of the participants joining us on Zoom today and streaming online, a big thank you to you both for taking the time to speak with us and share so much about what Tanzania and Ethiopia are doing. And a thank you, I will add my thanks to everyone else, to the Center for Conflict and Humanitarian Studies for hosting such an interesting event and for your tireless support of women in peace building. Shukran. So I now turn it over to Dr. Amal.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you all. First, I'll start by thanking our participants. It was very interesting to listen to all of you because of the common themes you all talked about, regardless of the region you're coming from and the country you're representing. And of course, I'm delighted to see how many female diplomats and politicians we have in Doha. And I'm also delighted to hear kind of the passionate tone with which you've all discussed these issues. Thank you, Dr. Sultan, for this effort. I've been here for 6 months. And by the way, Jacqueline, I'm Canadian. I've worked closely with Dr. Sultan. He's been doing amazing things through the center. And thank you for his team as well and for all the audience. I'm not going to make any comments now. I'll wait till the end. If I have time, I would like to provide this or the time left for us for questions and answers. I'll start with the first question by Mariam Al-Wahibi. What should a woman do when she wants to fulfill her ambition while facing social and religious customs that hinder her ambition? I would have liked to give this question to Ambassador Fatima, but she's left. And I'm wondering, how are we going to do this, Dr. Sultan? See who is going to volunteer and answer questions, or you want to leave it to me to assign questions?
We'll leave it to you to assign the questions to one of the
All
speakers.
Right. Oh, wow. That's, by the way, some of the questions overlap. So I'm going to read them. And I think we can then have a round of answers because, as I said, they overlap. So the first question is about how to fulfill ambitions in the face of social and religious customs. The second question, that was supposed to be for also Ambassador Fatima, but it has issues that everyone can deal with. She argued that including women in the peace process would bring practicality and thus sustainability to peace processes because women are free from political language. So my question is that, why do you implicitly assume that peace processes should be politics-free in order to be sustainable? Further, some would argue that women can be equally brutal or politicized as men. Assuming that women are politics-free is a socially constructed idea. Thanks for answering. I think this is a very interesting question, and I'll move to the next one. Okay, question about recording the meeting. Everything is being recorded, and you will find the recordings, I think, in English and in Arabic at the social media channels of the center. The last question I have in front of me is the following. Yes, this is very true that women contribute a lot in different sectors. If given chances, they do their jobs faithfully and heartfully, I think. Women act as leader at the same time. They play a role of mother or at the position in the office, contributing to environment issues. So I don't think there's a question, it's more of a comment. But as we can see, I think all the questions center on one theme, which is the willingness and the potential, of course, for women to contribute in different ways, but the challenges they face. In a way, we're lucky here. We have, as I said, we have common themes. One common issue we have all is that we consider ourselves as empowered women, we all have an office in one way or another and through which we can enact change, but we're a very, very small fraction of the women's population. So I think the question goes back to something we all talked about is first, the work from the bottom up. But when we do that, and except for, for our Canadian guests, you all represent countries with certain religious traditions that on the one hand can empower women and on the other hand can hinder or can, challenge the ambitions of women. And of course, early on, I think Ambassador Fatima talked about, the need to know about Islam. And I would rephrase it and say the need to know the different traditions and the different interpretations. Knowing Islam doesn't give us much. It's more about how different groups interpret the religion and in what ways one interpretation empowers women, and while on the other hand, a different interpretation can do the opposite. So I would like to have an engagement rather than choose one particular guest to answer the questions. Perhaps I would like to start with Sheikh Aliya, because not just because she's here in Qatar, but I think also, I'm sure you've been dealing with these issues where, we empower women, while at the same time we pay attention to the religious context and the social context in which we do that.
Thank you so much, Dr. Amal. First of all, thank you so much. I think this is a powerhouse today. We have heard voices of practitioners who are dealing with issues relating to peace building and peace sustaining from different countries, from Afghanistan, from Yemen, from Libya. And I believe that I think we have already we've passed the cultural barriers. I'm sure that women are very much fully engaged in their communities in Libya and Yemen and many countries. I think in Afghanistan as well. I think we've passed the barrier where you see there is a limitation of women participation in community-based processes. I think our focus today is more the actual negotiation process and government's engagement in having more participation of women in these processes. And yet again, there is a lot to do. We need to work harder in making sure women's voices are heard on the negotiation table. But of course, it has to do a lot with providing women with the opportunities, especially going back to young participants, young peacemakers. Today, we have a good powerhouse. We have women who are setting the example. We have, we've heard Ms. Fatima Jilani earlier. We've heard Ms. Intilaq al-Mutawakkil. We've heard Rani al-Fanak. You are examples. You are setting the example for younger generations. I think we need to focus on the future ahead of us. We need to focus on these peace processes that are developing. Let's look at the process today in Libya. Libya today is in a better position in terms of sustaining peace and building Libya after a difficult years of conflict and instability. So the key today is providing the opportunities for women to build their capacity, to engage further. And education is a key to do that, providing educational opportunities. But today we have the pandemic, the impact of the pandemic, the disruption of education, using further technological means to do so. These sort of virtual opportunities, again, it's an opportunity for young people to learn from and to contribute in a process that in the future they will be the next generation of peace builders and peace engagers in many processes in their countries. So to my point of view, I think we've crossed the cultural discussion today. I think we have more women out there, and we have a lot of believers, both men and women, have faith in women engagement. I think we've crossed that line, but we need to continue the work continue providing capacity building, continue providing the opportunity, having more voices in the global scene. I'm proud that Qatar is one of those countries who are engaging more women in different platforms, including in the peace processes that we host, that we provide the platform for. But there are many out there. So the support is there, but I think let's just continue the conversation and let's use more and more the technological means to provide education, capacity building, and use these platforms for exchanges, for others to learn from the experiences that Libya, Yemen, and others are going through. Thank you again.
Thank you. Jacqueline, if I can have you engage with this from the perspective of your work as Ambassador for Women, Peace, and Security, the kind of challenges you face when you do this kind of work, but at the same time, I'd like to hear the opportunities you find when you go up, when you engage all these issues.
I'll be very quick because I also want to hear the answers to this from everyone else. And I want to say only one point, which is to echo Sheikha Leah, who said this is a powerhouse. And one of the things that was striking to me listening to all of you is the capacity that everyone already has to participate in peace negotiations and shape the future of their countries. And I often hear a lot of emphasis on capacity building and needing more education, needing more time to develop skills. And obviously that is essential. And you know enough now about your community. So many women know their lived realities that they deserve to have a voice now. And so the way, when I think about it as our role as a government or working through the United Nations, and exactly as Sheikh Alia said, in convening negotiations, the burden should be on us to be providing opportunities, to be removing barriers and making space and redefining what the qualifications needed are to be at peace talks. So it's not your university degree, it's not how long you've been in a ministry somewhere, it's how well you know your community, whether you have a vision for the future. Those are the elements, and I think for too long we've been focused on the different specific differences that women make when they are there, and I think the whole conversation needs to shift to focus on why do these barriers still exist in the first place, and how can we take them down, because we're overlooking so much capacity that already exists. So really just want to echo your points on that, Sheikh Ali, and say that I think this was always an energizing experience, because even though so many of you shared hardships and increasing threats, just knowing that you have this vision and that you're working in your networks is such an encouraging thing. And especially for young women, it gives many of the rest of us working on this so much, I wouldn't say hope, but so much strength from within that this is the right way to go. So thank you, everyone. And I'll stop talking so we can hear from everyone else.
Thank you. I want to rephrase part of the questions I just listed so that we have kind of more, we have everybody engaged. Now, thinking about those questions, I think it may be helpful to say or to ask, what kind of practical advice can we give women who say, I have ambitions, but there are elements, factors around me that hinder that. So I think what we want here is more like a practical advice, because we've all been through this and we reached a position where we've overcome what was hindering us. So some practical advice would be nice. Ambassador Rahila, please go ahead.
Yes, I think first of all, I would echo Ambassador Jacqueline and also Sheikh Ali in terms of engaging, providing more resources and opportunities for education and for engaging women. And I would say women at the grassroots level should be provided life skills, moral building, confidence building, that they should be, because there are massive and majority of the population, their engagement will make a difference, has an agenda of change, and their moral building, confidence building is very much important, and also network building among them. And as well as I would say, leaders are there in any capacities that they can slowly and maneuver the norms and traditions to get engaged. But they lack resources. To be honest, they do lack resources. And I think we, as a donor, as an international community, we need to look back to revisit our way of contribution. I think local contributions, local women contributions, will be very effective for the more engagement of women grassroots at the peace, for the peace negotiation. Likewise, I would also say the exchange visit between the different countries, the negotiators, the mediators, these facilitations on engaging these women to exchange their experience between the different countries will make a lot of help to those women who are struggling. And in the time that, for example, if I say about Afghanistan, sometimes it is so difficult even to concentrate, because you're hearing that many people has been killed here and there, and at the same time you're going to be in a panel and talk, and you're losing your concentration even sometimes. And it happened to me the day before yesterday. Anyhow, so this transfer of skills, I would say, is very important. I would echo also Sheikh Alia in terms of technology, providing technology. This is also part of the provision of opportunity for women, especially in this pandemic times. And if I say, as a person that I was providing higher education scholarship for women in Afghanistan, rural, all of a sudden, all the universities closed, and they were supposed to start from home, and it was so hard and difficult. Can you imagine for the countries living in poverty, that how important our provision of these kind of technological equipment? So, and also, finally, I would also say any peace negotiation needs the contribution of the populations. Population of Afghanistan, if I say the diaspora, or spread it in many countries, they have a lot of knowledge and skills and intellectual, that the contribution of diaspora should be taken into account for this peace building process. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, certainly individual stories matter a lot to empower women, you know, and this is, we can see it at this forum as well, how we got where we are now and why, and by what means we do what we do. Who else would like to offer an advice for the ladies who ask those questions? Okay.
ممكن أنا
yes.
أشارك؟
if لحظة بس رانيا كانت رافعة إيدها بالأول بعدين نرجع.
مرحبا. Hello. I wanted to also offer an advice for the lady, because I can see where she's coming from. I as well faced and I'm facing also religious constraints and cultural constraints, and I guess this is something that all women in the Arab, if I may say, the Arab world and also the Muslim world is facing. Starting from the growth of extremism movements, and it also affected all of us. So it's not an easy process. It depends on the country context. It depends on the security situation. It depends on assessing your own situation. Sometimes families can be a barrier as well. And it can also reach to being a threat on some people's life. However, what I would say, or what I would recommend, is first of all focusing on what gathers us rather than what divides us. If we have multiple races and multiple cultures and multiple religions, and then we have one country, then we should focus on the thing that we have in common. We shouldn't, I guess our main challenge that we focus on religion so much that people think that it's you can't accept someone from different religion. And then the religion itself is divided to other madhahib, and then you can't accept someone from that madhab. And then it's divisions on multiple levels, which is somewhat very irrational. Therefore, I guess, or I believe out of my own experience, that focusing on community, raising community awareness on acceptance, diversity, embracing diversity and acceptance of people from different races, different religions, different cultures, different regions. This should be the main focus of the civil society, is acceptance, because it's going to lead to a behavioral change with time, and it's going to affect people's mindset and stereotyping. This is the first point. Second point, there's special programs for countering violence extremism, preventing violence extremism, that maybe they're not assessed, they're not, you know, the situations are different from each country context to another. However, there should be more focus on preventing violence extremism, and by education of youth, by providing spaces for youth so they will not be dragged, by raising youth awareness so they will not be dragged into those movements, by focusing on vulnerable groups. This is also going to provide protection. The second thing I'm going to say, many people said capacity building. Okay, I guess that I heard this word a lot, and I participated in many capacity building activities. But what I see from the donor-funded world, that there are so much funding spent on capacity building, but sometimes there is no real assessment for the situation. Just capacity building without real assessment is not really helpful, not really impactful. This is just a note. And a final note for the lady, if you have an intentions to do something for a greater good, then you go ahead and do it. However, don't be too confrontational. You can be a bit smart and try to try to take what's rightfully for you in a smart way, so you will not put yourself in harm, and the situation will change. This is something I guarantee for you. For example, like 10 years ago, I wouldn't travel alone. It was something out of the question. However, like 5 years ago, I travel alone the whole time. So people mindset to change, family behavior change with time, but you have to have clear intentions between you and yourself. And you have to be a bit strict about this, because some things are rightfully for you. You were born a free person, you should be a free person. And if we all chicken and we are all afraid doing anything, nothing is going to change. Sometimes we have to react. This is what I'm saying. You can't just always be afraid. If you are a true believer, you will just act, and you will be safe, and people around you will change, and actually they will start seeing you as a role model. They will start trusting you. They will start encouraging you as well. I hope it was helpful. And every person have his own experience, but I hope it's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a reason why this day is called Women's International Day, is common issues for women everywhere. I mean, because of the forum we have today, the focus is on Arab countries or countries with a Muslim majority, but certainly whatever issues women in those countries face, other women in different contexts face, because what hinders women from reaching a potential comes in different forms and shapes and takes different names. But at the end of the day, it's the same issue, how women are not reaching the full potential or their full potential. Intilaq, you'd like to say something?
Yes, if you allow me just to answer all your questions from our experience. First, at the international level, I think that it is time, as the General Secretary said, it's to walk the talk. I mean, we have 1325. We have a lot of UN resolutions, but not yet really activating. Not yet activating all those resolutions of the UN. For example, until now, we don't have a women special envoy. I mean, why not? I mean, I feel that there are really women who has the capacity, and they will be accepted. For example, if there is a woman special envoy for Yemen, I'm sure that she will be accepted. And this will raise actually and enhance women's rules, Yemeni rules, to participate in peace building, because there is really an international special envoy in Yemen. So this is also, UN should be really a model and a wheel for change actually, and not just giving a talk on a Women's Day and Mother's Day and so on. I mean, we have to walk those talks. I mean, after 20 years, 25 years for and 20 years for 1325 and so on. This is one thing. Another thing, there was a legend in my experience in Yemen, that it says that culture, religion really stops women from participating, and we cannot really appoint women because religion, Islam, and culture. But we see in the 2011 and the Arabic Spring, Yemeni women went to the streets along with their sisters, brothers, and fathers. They slept in nets in the streets. And they didn't say that there is a culture that stops women from doing this. So it was, in my opinion, it was a lie that really repeated from decision makers. So political will is really important. Another way that we are using, as Ms. Fatma has said, it is the Islamic approach. Yes, we could. I mean, Quran has really supported women and has emphasized actually equality and equity, and that we should have it. Why don't we use it? Why we allow those, radical use it against us? Why don't we use it also and just try to interpret in the Quran from the women's eyes? So we need to do that. In my opinion, also, we have to build the future. So we should really start putting programs, youth, male and females, working together. And the young people also should accept women as leaders also, just like Sayyidah Khadija, the wife of the Prophet Muhammad. And we could really give examples from our culture if we want really to change the future. Again, as Sheikh Alia and others said, youth are really important. They are the future, and this is their future. And they are the ones who should really sign and design peace building, peace building treaties, and both their needs and what they want for their future. And this is by empowering them. I'm also with the Ambassador Jacqueline that it is enough for capacity. We have enough capacity. I mean, they could use the 5%, the 20% of women now. Yeah, we have national, we have international also, women who are qualified, but not yet used. Thank you. I will stop here.
Thank you. Any of our guests would like to say something before we wrap this up? All right. I just I don't want to sound as if we ignored the question about as if women are not politicized when they engage in peace processes. No, certainly that. I don't think any of the panelists intended to say women are not politicized, but I think the focus has been on kind of being positively politicized to engage in peace processes. And actually, we do want women to be politicized. This is how we're driven to make changes. I'm being told we're almost done here. So anybody would like to say something at the end before? Yes.
Just one word. I would say, looking to the different context, I would say women and youth to be engaged. Women and youth, both.
Right. Well, thank you very much. That was, we're honored to have you all here. Now, I'm not speaking on behalf of Dr. Sultan. I'm speaking on behalf of myself as a colleague of Dr. Sultan. We share with him the same space, which is the campus that houses both the Arab Center and the Doha Institute for Graduate Studies. This has been a great opportunity to hear you all. And as I said before, we can hear just the commonalities between all of us, regardless where we come from, and we can hear the potential we have to make changes and the kind of the exciting work we can all do from the different positions we have. Thank you again, each one of you individually. Happy Women's International Day. And I'll give the floor to Dr. Sultan now in case he would like to say something.
Thank you very much, Amal. Thank you to everyone. I think this has been absolutely fascinating. From our perspective as a relatively young center in the Middle East, in the middle of the Arab world, in the middle of the Muslim world, we're trying to build this agenda on women and peacemaking. And you could see what fascinated me really is that you all read the same concept note, but from very different perspectives. And you could do a lot of things simultaneously. And I'm full of admiration to Intilaq, how she managed her grandchild while also was able to contribute in depth to the ideas. And it maybe illustrates something that women do not actually, we never feel, we don't know these kind of dimensions. And I hope that with your support, we will be able to continue this discussion between the top level of policy, where we have seen there's a lot of policy, a lot of norms, as Ambassador Jacqueline O'Neill said, and Ambassador Alia. But obviously, when it comes to implementation, there are a lot of challenges. And they're not very different from the general challenges faced by those engaged in peace building. But clearly, the engagement of women can bring qualitative difference to these processes. And what Sister Fatma said at the beginning about the role of the 4 women in the Afghan negotiation team, I had the privilege of witnessing, directly. I know the calming effect they brought into this, the direction. There were lots of obstacles throughout this the discussion, and if it wasn't for them, I think we would have been on a totally different track now. And there are serious fears now that talks about, governments want to accelerate the Afghan peace process, and they're talking about shifting the talks back to the warlords who started the situation in the first place. And I think it would be a real shame if we go back to where we were in 1994, 1996, and just rely on strong men to reach an agreement. This is, I think, is a real test. I'm very privileged to have been listening to all of this. And thank you again to all of you. And I hope we do continue this conversation, and we will do our best here from Doha. Thank you very much.
By the way, I've been saying Women's International Day. I'm very proud. I said that it should have been International Women's Day because I'm using the Arabic. I've been Arabized in 6 months in Doha. I'm translating literally from the Arabic into English. Thank you so much. And we hope to have you again.
Thank you all. Take care. Bye.
Thank you all. See you, inshallah.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Mr.